Welcome to another episode of the Work Hard, Play Hard podcast. My name is Rob Murgatroyd, and each week on the podcast, I interview the best minds on the planet in all the areas of your life, from mindset to fitness to spirituality, and of course, business. Look, we believe you deserve success in all areas of your life and not only business. But before we get into today's show, you may want to join us on our next Work Hard, Play Hard experiences. This year, we'll be going to Mykonos and Marrakesh. The goal of these experiences are to get you out of your day-to-day and to put you into experiences that will ignite your soul. So go to workhardplayhardmastermind.com, fill out an application so we can jump on a discovery call to see if we are a good fit for each other. And remember, excuses are over. It's time to live.
Regardless of the hurdles, the bumps, the obstacles that are in your way, you've got to always appreciate and know why you're doing what you're doing, and know that you cannot waver. Because if you have a calling, and we literally knew we had a calling to be out here, we just said, okay, let's do it. And ultimately everything finally worked out, and we could never be happier where we are now. In our minds, we knew, again, 1000% where we were going, what we were being called to do, and the impact we knew that we were going to make by moving out here. Social media is not going away. I mean, our kids are all over it, and I'm really starting to embrace it and appreciate it more than I ever have or ever thought I would.
What's up, everybody? This is Rob Murgatroyd, and welcome to another episode of the Work Hard, Play Hard show. Today on the show is Brett Thomas. I wanted to have Brett on the show because he and I were walking parallel paths. We were both in the medical world in the southeast of America, and we wanted to move west for a better life, sunshine and beaches and being, no longer tied to the constraints of working in the medical world. And we really did it right around the same time. I mean, we were probably 3 or 4 months apart. I was in Europe while he was moving, and, I've been here for about 2 or 3 weeks now. And what we talked about, I think, is going to be applicable for you guys, because we talked about the dream of running a business with your wife together. We talked about changing locations. We talked about what it's like to actually work with your spouse. And we talked about what it's like to leave the security of something that you know for 20 years, 25 years of, a secure, quote unquote, dependable income and all of the challenges that come around that. So I really believe that you're going to love this episode. If you're in a place in your life where you want to make a change of career or a change of physical location, I think this episode is going to really be very useful for you guys. So please enjoy this episode with Brett Thomas. Brett, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It is awesome that you invited me to the show. Looking forward to it.
I'm super excited to do this interview with you, and here's why. Because we're two guys with crazy hair that are born in 1966 who just moved our families to Southern California, who were both in the medical fields. Pretty weird, huh?
Man, you don't know how weird this is. And this the fact that we are both born the same year and have crazy hair, set aside all the other stuff that we have in common. It's awesome.
That's awesome. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to bounce around a little bit. The show is basically around the science of achievement and how you accomplish certain things that you've accomplished. Then we're going to move more into fulfillment, and we're going to wrap it up with some rapid fire questions. Cool?
Awesome.
All right. To give people context, you and I connected at pivotal points in our life. I was trying to leave my chiropractic career, and you were trying to leave your medical sales career. And, we both wanted to live a new life in California. And I think that there's a lot of people who are listening that are finding themselves in a similar place, insert whatever major change that they want to have. And I think There may be people that are wanting to make a move, either in career or in location for a whole host of reasons that they just have not pulled the trigger on for whatever reason. And I'd like to be able to go through your story a bit and maybe offer some context to maybe they'll see themselves in your story and maybe help them to move along. Cool?
Sure. Sounds awesome.
All right. So when was it that you first decided, you know what, this job is no longer fulfilling for me? Great jobs, definitely helped me get to where I am, but it's just not doing it anymore. And I want to move to a new location that is better going to support me and better support my family. And I want to start a new career too. So tell me about that. Like, when did you first start to go, was it like all at once, or was it a little bit at a time?
No, that's a great question. If you rewind, Brooke, my amazing wife, she and I decided years ago that at some point during our careers, we were going to work together. Our kids were younger and they were in ages where we both said, you know what, with me traveling and her starting to get into a network marketing career and I'm gone a lot, we felt like it was not the right time. And the kids were young enough and they didn't necessarily, quote unquote, feel me being away. But as the kids started to get older, we both looked at each other many times over a glass of wine at night and said, you know what, we're going to do this. Not sure when it's going to happen, but we both agreed that by the time the kids got into middle school and high school, respectively, we were going to do this. I guess to answer your question, it was really, really hard line about 3 years ago.
Around 3 years ago. Okay. I had a interesting conversation with my wife, Kim, about this. And I said, it's taken me, we're here now. We're in Southern California. It's taken me 15 years to make this happen. She said, no, it didn't take you 15 years. It took you 2 minutes to make a decision to make it happen. And there's a bit of truth to a point where you have to decide to make a change. Whether it's your career, whether it's your location, where you make a decision that I'm actually going to make that change. And for you, why do you think, you didn't do, let's say, a career change a few years ago? And why did you do it now? Was there something that you're like, I'm waiting for, to be vested in my pension, or I'm waiting for, specifically the kids, to get into middle school, or like, was there one thing that, or was it more just fear of the unknown and you just weren't there yet emotionally?
Wow. I would say there's a combination of a couple things. For me personally, the company that I was working for, it was on an explosive growth mode, and they, I was very fortunate. I was on the sales exec team that helped to drive the company from 400 million to 14 billion. They'll close out the year this year probably at 14 billion, and it was awesome. And I felt like I had an impact on all the people that they were on my sales team, everybody that I recruited and trained, and that was all awesome. But for me personally, the company was getting so big and it became so layered that I didn't really feel like I was having as much of an impact. And so I just felt like, it's time for not just a job change or a company change. I felt like it was time for a really big career change. Meaning, going back to what I was saying earlier, that I really just had to go out there and make the aspirations that Brooke and I had to work together come true. And then with that, we also, we fell in love with the West Coast years ago, because actually, ironically, in my corporate job, they were going to move me out here 5 years ago. And long story, but we decided not to do it because it was going to be an LA move versus a San Diego move. And that just really wasn't where we wanted to raise our kids at that time. But we fell in love with the West Coast. And so we made a decision that it was time for a big change, which also really was going to include picking up our entire family, moving our company, all the way to the West Coast, which obviously involves leaving church, leaving friends, leaving family. But we felt like it was just absolutely a massive calling on our life to do that.
Let's try and make this instructive for people that are, finding themselves in your shoes. And, just wanting to make that change. If you were, looking back and giving yourself some advice and knowing what you know now, you can go back and go like, okay, here's what I think is important that you need to know. Let's first start with career. What advice would you give somebody who's in a career, doesn't want to be in the career anymore, and wants to get out of it? What hits you when you think about that portion of your story?
I would say if you're in a career, especially in a corporate career, and you're not doing personal development, you don't have a coach, you're not reading a book at least every couple of weeks on motivation, personal development, something to expand your mind. If you're not in a mastermind, I would say you're missing out on a massive opportunity and a place in this world that you have no clue what even goes on. Because so many times, if you're in a corporate job, you're immersed in that culture, and that's where your friends are. That's where you're living, 50, 60 hours a week. If you're like me, I was on a plane, I was in a hotel, I was in a meeting, I was in a hospital. I mean, I was immersed in that culture. And then when I started to look outside of that, I felt this massive pull more towards the entrepreneurial world. And so I think that's the biggest thing I would say. If you're missing out on so much more opportunity, and even if you decided to stay in somewhat of a corporate structure, I would highly recommend that you really immerse yourself into personal development, because it makes you a better human, makes you a better parent, a better spouse, just a better everything.
I love it. So let's talk about physical location. You were living in the Southeast and you had a beautiful home, and, it was not nearly the price that the homes are here in the West Coast. And, I'm not saying that you've downsized, but, it's certainly much more expensive here and you don't get as much for your money. So the question I have around that is, I'm assuming that, you guys had to weigh out what those sacrifices looked like. Let's deal with the house first, and then let's move on to the kids after that. But from the house perspective, you're living in a place, it's not that expensive. You have a crazy, beautiful house, but it's not where you want to live. And so was there a point where you reconciled and said, why am I going to an area, yes, it has sunshine. Yes, it has the beaches and stuff, but it's going to be so much more expensive. I'm not going to get the kind of house. How did you reconcile the trade-offs?
That's something that we had very little issue with, believe it or not. I mean, like I said earlier, we fell in love with California, years ago, and we knew we were going to, technically downsize with square footage. But, we have come to the realization, especially the last couple of years, where I don't want more stuff. What I want to live in an environment where my kids and my marriage and my business can thrive. And I don't need, a 6,000 square foot house. I don't need to have, 3 amazing cars in the garage and on and on and on. It's all about really going back to the impact and, living out here, the fact that we live in basically half the size of house, but we're outside and we thrive and we live outside now. I mean, we ride bikes to restaurants. We can walk almost to the beach. I mean, we were 2 miles from the water. I mean, literally, we've lived here since July and it's rained one time. And so, those are the things that you really look at and evaluate. If you put things on a spreadsheet, like I tend to, I'm like, okay, the left side of the spreadsheet shows the house and the cars and the stuff. That's really, it doesn't do anything for us anymore. And the right side of the spreadsheet was our kids are thriving. They've got more friends than you can ever imagine. They're going to awesome schools. They go to the beach anytime they want to go. They get up and surf. They can ride their bikes to the beach. We've got a zillion restaurants that we can go eat at outside. We've got a lot of friends that we've already created here that have really impacted our life, and we've really expanded our horizons out here. I mean, you and Kim are a great example. I mean, you guys, we consider you guys like awesome friends, and you guys, we have so many similarities, and just the fact that we can really kind of like rely on each other. If you need anything, I call Rob and Kim, and we always feel the same way that you guys can do the same for us. So that's one of the biggest things for us. It's really putting things on a spreadsheet and saying, you know what, the left side doesn't really matter that much. The right side is what we're focused on.
Do you think that comes with age? Do you think that, as you're 53 now, that you just look at the things that are important to you in life differently than you did at, say, 43?
I think that has a lot to do with it. And it also has a lot to do with the self-evaluation that Brooke and I have done over the last, call it 3 to 5 years, with how the environment that we want to, have our kids in, the environment that we want to expand and really have our marriage in, the environment where we want to, eventually, I'll never use the word retire, but eventually this is where we wanted to land, and we knew it was the place because there's so much opportunity. But the other thing is, putting yourself in an environment that up-levels you. I always tell people, one of the best things I can recommend if you're 25 years old and you're not sure where you're headed, always put people around you that are going to challenge you, that have already done the things or are headed to do the things that you want to do or that you aspire to do. And that's one of the reasons too, and that's that we moved out here. We've always wanted to up level, and we really have been focused on that, especially in the last 3 years.
We talk about how we want to make a change in our life, and we want to do, different things, and, be in a new environment. But that does not come without a price. And sometimes, when you're trying to make a move from one thing to another, it isn't so easy. That doesn't mean you don't do it. It doesn't mean you don't stay focused on your goal, but it's, it's not without its challenges. And I remember being in, it's so great for me, and I'm hoping that I'm doing a good job for the listener, being able to be a fly on the wall to this experience. But, I remember, while I was in Atlanta and you were in, it was North Carolina, right?
Yeah, we were in Charlotte.
And I remember, us talking about it, and, I was getting ready to take 4 months with the family in Europe, and, you guys were putting the house up for sale. And from that point, I packed up my stuff and I went to Europe, and I bounced around for 4 months. And for you went through a series of massive challenges in being able to get rid of the house to move to California. And I think it's important to talk about that because, I don't want to have this show where it's like, hey, I just decided I'm going to leave a career and I'm going to move to California and everything's going to be amazing. It's not without challenges. Doesn't mean you don't do it, but it's not without challenge. So maybe you could talk about what that period of your life was like when you were like, I'm leaving, I'm going to sell this house, and I'm moving to California, right?
Yeah.
Talk about that gap.
Yeah, no, yeah. You talk about it. It's funny. I just read a really awesome book called "The Obstacle Is the Way" by Ryan Holiday, and ironically, it was the perfect time in my life to read this book because if the listeners out there have not read it, I would highly recommend reading it. It's "The Obstacle Is the Way" by Ryan Holiday, but it really talks about embracing the challenges and looking at things and figuring out how to get around them. You're going through them, around them, whatever way you're going to be able to do it, but embrace the challenges. And a lot of the book talks about stoicism. But what happened with us, really, if you rewind, going back to setting a goal and knowing in your heart, knowing that we felt so amazingly pulled to California. We knew there was a massive amount of impact that we were called to make coming out here, and not just for us as a couple, our marriage or our kids, but we just felt like we were going to have a massive impact. We knew in our minds 1,000%, no doubt, that we needed to make this move. There was just, no doubt, right? So what happened with us is we made the decision, figured out the plan, put some dates on the calendar. We put them in pen. We didn't pencil them in. We said we were going to be in California by July 4th. We told our kids we're going to have feet on the sand, watching the fireworks in Southern California. So we put the house in the market early spring in Charlotte, when things are hot, and the real estate market in Charlotte is ridiculously hot. I mean, stuff sells within a day, right? And we put the house on the market, put a high price on it. We went under contract within a week. Everything was clicking along. And sometimes when your house goes on the market for a high price and somebody buys it immediately, of course, they sometimes, see other things that are out there when you go into due diligence. And I think what happened with us is the couple that bought or that contracted on our house, they found something else. And so they literally backed out of the contract the final day of due diligence. And so that was obviously a big hurdle we had to deal with and had to overcome, because our house had been on the market for 30 days. So it goes back on the market. We immediately get under contract again. And within 2 weeks, their financing falls through. So we're back to square one again. We're just looking at each other going, what is going on? But the reason I'm saying all this is because in our minds, we knew, again, 1000% where we were going, what we were being called to do, and the impact that we knew that we were going to make by moving out here. And then so our house goes back on the market, number 3. And then finally, it does sell. And we finally close after a bunch of different hurdles we had to jump through with them. And so we finally close. And then we're on the way out here, and the moving truck literally is 10 days late. And so we had to live in a hotel from beginning to end for 3 weeks, which, as you know, Rob, in Southern California during the summer, it is the high season. So we had a massive amount of expenses that we didn't really accrue for living in a hotel for 3 weeks. And by that time, we love hotels, because we have like a mantra in our marriage that whatever hotel we stay in, we always kind of mandate that it needs to be nicer than our house. And so we kind of stuck with that for this one. So we lived in a hotel for 3 weeks, finally gets the moving truck out here, and they wouldn't, because I was a little frustrated because they were so much later than they were supposed to be. And so I was trying to negotiate a discount on the move. And the guy basically says, look, man, you either write me a check for X amount of dollars to get your furniture off the truck, or we're just going to keep the furniture. So, little things like that, which always goes back to, regardless of the hurdles, the bumps, the obstacles that are in your way, you've got to always appreciate and know why you're doing what you're doing, and know that you cannot waver. Because if you have a calling, and we literally knew we had a calling to be out here, we just said, okay, let's do it. And ultimately everything finally worked out, and we could never be happier where we are now.
It's amazing. You mentioned Ryan Holiday's book. He's fantastic. His book, Ego is the Enemy or Perennial Seller, is great. He's also has something I'm not sure if you know about. It's called The Daily Stoic. And it's a big book. And I put it on my desk, and every morning he gives you 1 page of a Stoicism philosophy. And, it's like 3 or 4 sentences of something that, I don't know, Epictetus or somebody said. And then he'll explain it underneath it. And you would think, like, what do I give a shit about, like, what Epictetus said 3,000 years ago or whatever it was? But it weirdly applies to today. So I love how he presents things. An Obstacle is one of those books that's great. So I love that you use that metaphor.
Yeah, no, he's awesome. I mean, he quotes Marcus Aurelius all the time. I mean, it's amazing how those things always prove true, even 3,000 years later.
Yeah, it's crazy. I want to talk about the kids a little bit. You have 2 daughters. How old are they?
We've got 2 daughters. One who is going to be 15 next week, which is when I say that out loud, I'm still like shocked. Yeah, and then we've got a younger one that just turned 12 a couple weeks ago.
All right, so you got a 15 and a 12-year-old daughter. Those ages are ages that can be, especially for girls, can be challenging, They're used to their friends, and, they're used to their home, but they did not seem to mind, at least looking in from the outside, that they were going across the country and starting a new life. And I think some people think, I don't want to move my kids now. They're in middle school, or they're going into high school, or they're in high school. It's just, now's not the time. But it didn't seem like that was much of an issue for you guys. Can you talk a little bit about, what the conversation looked like, and any maybe fears that you had, or any advice that you can give people around that?
Yeah, a lot of people will say that. And for us, it really goes back to when they were young for a couple of reasons. One, Brooke and I always looked at each other when the girls were really young and said, one of our biggest goals in life is to have these two girls always love each other and have a strong relationship with each other, because like I grew up, my brothers and I are not super close with each other. And that's a good example of, I learned that that's not what I want for my family. And so we always made sure that regardless of whatever arguments or, borrowing of the clothes or whatever happens, when they lay their head down at night, there will be nothing but love between the two of them. And so I think a combination between that, and we always have made sure that stayed true, even, where they are now. Because they do now borrow each other's clothes. And then
it's always the clothes, by the way.
It is clothes and shoes. And the crazy thing, my oldest daughter is now wearing Brooke shoes, which that's a whole different story. So when they were young, and then made sure that they stayed and are staying close with each other. But also, Brooke and I, even though I did travel a lot with my corporate job, we always made sure that we kept like 3 pillars of success in our family. It was always going to be God, the marriage, and then the kids. And everything else fell up underneath that, work and friends and relationships and whatever we were doing. There was always a 4th level that always fell below the kids. And we always wanted to make sure, and we try to do as good of a job as we can, and we're definitely not perfect parents, but we always made sure that the family unit stayed extremely important and focused. And I think that's one of the really big reasons that they were able to transition so, I won't say seamlessly, because my oldest daughter still kind of misses her friends, and thank goodness for social media. But I mean, they've really transitioned amazingly well, better than I could have ever asked for. They've made so many friends out here, and for anybody that has given Southern California a bad rap, saying, well, people aren't very nice. Man, I've never met nicer people in my entire career of travel than I have in Southern California. I mean, it is amazing. We call it a magical fairyland because the people out here are so incredibly nice. And so the kids have done an amazing job transitioning. And like I was saying earlier, the schools that they're in have opened their arms to them, embraced them. I mean, I could not have asked for a better and easier and more fruitful transition for them.
All right. So now I want to talk about working together and all of the benefits of working together, right? The dream was, I want to work with my wife, and now be careful what you wish for because you got it. Tell me about what it's like working with your wife from day one, and what have you learned about doing that you didn't think was going to be an issue?
Wow. How much time do you have? Short story. Yeah, we've been working together now for approximately 4 months, and we are figuring it out because we both came from an environment that we're both really good and used to being the boss, because she's the CEO of her company and she's been doing her thing for quite a few years and having amazing success. And then I was fortunate, in my last 25 years, doing my gig over in the medical world. I was used to running and doing my own thing. So now we're coming together as the CEO and the COO and trying to work together, trying to, again, keeping our 3 pillars of success in play: God, the marriage, the kids, and then work. And then sometimes that cone of success gets flipped upside down because work sometimes comes first. But yeah, so we're figuring it all out. I mean, it's definitely, it has not, in all candor, has not come as easy as we thought, because we're still trying to figure out, okay, this is what I'm good at. This is what I enjoy. This is the lane of traffic that you're going to stay in. And if we agree to that, you got to stay out of my lane of traffic. And so we're figuring that out. We even hired a communications coach because we wanted to get in front of that. Because too many times, regardless of whatever it is, in marriage and parenting and anything, we all, and I'm bad about this. I always look at whatever's in front of me. Again, the obstacle, right? I can figure this out. I've been super successful in everything I've done. I can figure it out. Well, I would highly recommend that you don't figure it out. If you're going to get into business with your significant other, hire a coach, hire a communications coach, hire someone that can help you navigate that road, because it's, like looking in the beginning that we thought that road was going to be straight and narrow and I was going to be driving a Lamborghini down that road. But that road, as we have found out, and it's been a good thing, that road is curvy. It's got bumps. It's got gravel on it sometimes. Sometimes there's not even a road that you got to figure out, right? And so we're figuring it out. But, like I said, I'm extremely grateful. And when things do get hard, I try to grab her, by the shoulders and go, listen, I know this sucks, or I know, whatever. Like today has not been really a great day, but I'm just grateful that I get to do this with you. And so that's what I would recommend.
What was it? And you can go into as much particulars as you want or not. It's totally cool. But what was it that you learned in your time with the communications coach that you found useful to help navigate, or do you just not have enough time under your belt with the coach?
But I really think that the one thing that we have really embraced and are learning during this process is what we're good at and like what our language is. Like, because, Brooke is built totally different than me. And if you take, and we took a couple of different personality profiles, and which indicated that we are so much different. But you know what? If you can understand those differences and you can work those differences together in such a way that will make you, or that can make you better humans, better parents, better work cohorts, just better everything. That's the biggest thing I think that we are really starting to understand and embrace, and really taking the time to understand each other so we can be better together.
Yeah, I mean, it's those very things that attracted you to each other in the first place. If you found somebody just like you, it would be incredibly boring, right? So you need somebody who's different. As you're telling that story, I'm going back to a time when, Kim and I started working together, and there was a lot of challenges around it because we do think incredibly differently. But, yesterday, Kim put a post on it. You could see it on Facebook. It was pretty interesting. We were working on branding one of the products that we have. And, I am somebody that is an external processor. So I like to, if I'm trying to figure something out, I like to talk about it. She's not. She's somebody that likes to be quiet and internally process and think about it. And so I don't necessarily know what she's thinking because I'm trying to talk it through and she's trying to think it through, right? I am incredibly linear in my thinking. I like things sequential. So we start here and then we're going to go here and we're going to go there. She's spatial in her thinking. She's like, okay, what about that thought bubble? And what about that thought? And I'm like, whoa, hold on. Let's ring it. And so, yesterday while we were going through this, creating this product, I'm all, I'm following my path. She's following hers. But we have developed cues with each other where she says, okay, stop. And I know what she's saying. What she's saying is stop talking. I need to think. And so I'm like, okay, I just stopped talking. It doesn't bother me. It used to. It doesn't bother me now because I know that's how she thinks. And so she'll be drawing, bubbles on a piece of paper all over the place. And I'll be like, she can see in my face, I don't know what the hell she's doing. It looks like, DNA of a molecule. But then she'll go, okay, look, we're going to start with this because she knows I need to think linearly. So I think developing all of those things is really important. So I love, the fact that you guys are in the mud right now. As much as it's not fun, I promise you that if you stick with it, you'll be able to speak shorthand to each other before you know it.
Yeah. And don't you agree that, with like what you just described between the two of you, granted, that was in more of a work environment, but it also comes to play so much in your marriage and as you guys as parents.
For sure it does. And there's just a lot different ways of doing it. In my particular case, when it comes to parenting, I had such a bad role model that I have deferred much of the parenting, not given up the act of parenting, but I look because she just has two incredible parents that really, really raised her well. So, I've kind of like recognized that I didn't have a lot of those gifts that she had. So when it comes to parenting, if I'm like trying to figure something out, I'll usually ask her what's your thoughts here? Because I know that I have a blind spot in this area and I'm not great at it. And so, it kind of comes to your point of what you were saying earlier, except I just apply it to kids, of like knowing knowing where your strength is and knowing where not your strength is. And I push it even out into the area of parenting. Like, I just know that, not that I'm a bad parent, I just know that I don't have good training in the area, and she does. Yeah. So I just, go to her. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it totally does. And one of the things, with us, we have 2 daughters. No, you've got just one, but one of our daughters is so much like Brooke. And I have sometimes a little bit of a challenge in my communication style with our younger daughter. And Brooke comes to me and she's like, listen, Brad, she's not going to hear you if you say it like this. This is how you need to say it. And I love that, because I just don't think that way. And then with our other daughter, she's a lot like me. And she is like, I won't get into a lot of details, but she's a lot like me. And I could do the same thing with Brooke. Brooke will say stuff to her. I'm like, Brooke, listen, she doesn't hear what you're saying. That's not going to be effective for her. Try to say it this way. And so it really works out well with us. And those are small examples of, we try to learn from each other, try to figure out what we're good at and what we want to improve on, and then apply that towards everything we do.
But isn't it funny how we think that everybody should think the way we think?
Totally. Totally.
You're like, no.
Yeah, welcome to my world.
No, you're not. That's not the right way.
Yeah, the old saying, well, it's my world. You just live in it.
You just live in it.
That's
okay,
right.
So I want to talk a little bit about being in the world of social media now. This was not your world when you were in corporate. Now you are, you're an Instagram husband. You are on social media a lot. How has let's face it, the business you're creating is being driven, as most businesses now, by social media and its content. How does that feel for you coming from the corporate world?
I am quickly embracing it, and I am trying to quickly learn it and be as effective as possible. I just took a course on the 4 methods of Instagram posts, as an example. And that's been effective. And so I'm really, granted, in all honesty, it takes a lot of time, and I'm trying to really do a good job in calendar blocking and trying to forecast what I'm going to be posting on social media across whatever platforms. Definitely helps that whatever you post on Instagram goes to Facebook. But in our other business, we've got a lot of stuff that needs to be posted differently in different platforms. LinkedIn is another place that I'm really starting to look at and get advice from other people, that it's really almost an untapped market. And so that's something that I'm also getting ready to get a lot more engaged in. So yeah, social media is not going away. Our kids are all over it, and I'm really starting to embrace it and appreciate it more than I ever have or ever thought I would.
Beautiful. All right. So I want to move into some questions around fulfillment. And my experience with entrepreneurs who are type A, driven personalities that want to grow, is that they grind, hustle. And at some point, they start to become inefficient with their grinding and hustling, because they hit a point of diminishing returns. You can only grind for so long. So I want to talk about some things that you do to help renew the spirit, sharpen the saw, allow you to be more fulfilled. So what's a new behavior or belief that you've had maybe in the last couple years, that has significantly improved the quality of your life?
Wow. Couple different things. Number one, I would say for the marriage and ultimately our work life together, is having that date night every single week that doesn't waver, and making sure that I plan it, and I just tell Brooke what to wear, what times we're going to leave. Many times I don't tell her where we're going to go, because she likes the fact that I'm taking the lead on it. She doesn't have to think about it. She only wants to know, what time we're leaving and what do I need to wear. So that's one thing that we've really stuck to, that's really allowed us to kind of take a step back. And when we do the date night too, we have kind of I won't call them rules, but we have guidelines. I'm the kind of guy that I don't really like a life with rules. I like guidelines, because, but we always say, okay, if we're going to go out to dinner, we're going to talk about work for 30 minutes. And so if we arrive at 7, we're going to order a beverage, and we're going to talk for work for the first 30 minutes. And that's going to be from 7 to 7:30. And at 7:30, if I set an alarm on my clock, on my phone, that's when the work talk stops. And then we're going to talk about all the cool stuff that we have in front of us, the kids or vacations or the holidays coming up or whatever it is. So that's been, a big change that we've stuck to. And plus, living in Southern California, the weather here is amazing, as you know, Rob. I mean, it never rains. We have a zillion places that we can go and eat outside. I mean, today we're actually going to ride our bikes down to the peninsula and have lunch outside because we can. So I would say that's the biggest thing that we've done that's changed for us.
That was really good. Really good. Okay, so I want to highlight that a second, get that in my head. So you plan the date night, you just tell her what time to be ready. And you guys have an agreed upon, not rule, but guideline that it is going to be a 30-minute business talk because you know that you're not going to be able to escape it. So you're going to use that time to have a drink and to talk about whatever it is that you're talking about with business. But then there's going to be a timer. Timer goes off and you go, okay, business talk is over. Now we're going to talk about all the cool stuff that's in front of us. And we're going to have a good night talking about life and all the trips that we're about to take and how incredible everything is. Did I get that right?
You summed it up perfectly.
Dude, that's really freaking good. Tonight's my first date night that we have had. I'm embarrassed to say this, but probably in 4 months because it's not so easy finding a babysitter for a 5-year-old in Europe. And so we had that challenge. And, I felt that obviously we needed one. So I was like, Kim, we don't know anybody here in LA, but you got to talk to a couple, we've only been here for 2 weeks now or whatever. You got to find one. So she found one tonight and we're going to do a date night movie. We're going to go see Ford versus Ferrari.
Oh yeah.
And then go out to dinner. So I'm going to do your date. We're going to call this the Brett Date Night Experience. I'm going to do that tonight. I love that, man. That was really good.
Yeah. And, one of the things that, with kids, we can't do it every single Thursday because we have things that are going on. But, we try to forecast it out as long as we can in order so she can look forward to that. Because, as you know, she's got a lot of stuff that she does and her brain is always going. And so if that's one thing that I can plan that I know means a ton to her, I can take that off her plate. And the only thing she has to do is to show up, look good, and look forward to it. Makes things so much better for her.
Yeah. Plus women really want men to do that. So that's great. Are there any particular positions or opinions that you've changed your mind or shifted your mind or position completely on over the last couple of years? So in other words, you're like, I used to think this way about something, but recently I think I was wrong. I think this is the way I think about that now. Is there anything that comes to mind there?
Yeah, I'll peel the hood back a little bit. In my corporate world, I found myself, kind of being the leader and really focused on closing deals and just, having just, living in that corporate structure, finding myself almost like having that like assassin mentality, win at all costs, doesn't matter, at least with me, that was like the mindset. And so what I've really done or tried to, and I'm still trying to do a much, much better job is really just thinking about other people first and foremost, thinking about what can I do to serve you? Not what can I do this morning to serve myself? So that's the biggest thing. And it's been an enlightenment for me and a really enjoyable experience, but I'm definitely not there yet, but I'm trying to get better and better every day.
I love it. Okay, let's do, in the remaining couple of minutes, let's move into the rapid fire round. First thing that comes to your mind, your friends would say your superpower is?
My ability to read and understand people very quickly.
What's one thing you're afraid of right now?
Oh man, again, how much time do you have? The one thing that I'm afraid of right now is that we're not going to be able to scale our businesses as quickly as I know we can because we don't have the right people hired yet. And yet is the key phrase or the key word.
What keeps you up at night?
That I cannot be the best parent and the best husband that I always want to be.
What do people never ask you, but you wish they did?
why did you stay around in the same company for 25 years?
What book have you reread the most?
Going back to Brooke and I, being different people but working together. I am currently reading, and I would highly recommend this for anybody out there, especially if you're married or you're trying to work together. Book by Gary Chapman, 5 Love Languages. It is one of the best books that you could ever read.
What's your love language?
Oh man, I'm still trying to figure it out. I'm like a mixture. I'm literally, I'm about 4 chapters in, and I'm really trying to go through the exercises and really trying to figure it out. I know words of affirmation are really good, but I'm kind of a complex guy.
Interesting. What about your wife?
Oh man, the same thing. She loves words of affirmation. She loves, feeling safe and secure. Loves, that's one of the reasons that I plan that date night, because she just wants to be able to show up. She doesn't want to think about certain things. And so yeah.
I love that. Okay. What is your guilty pleasure?
My guilty pleasure is martinis. I'm not a big sugar guy because I'm a massive addict for CrossFit. I think sugar is probably one of the worst things you can ingest into your system. There's a lot of things say that it's like more addictive than drugs, and so yeah, stay away from the sugar. But I will enjoy a martini.
Love it. All right, we're going to switch things up a little bit. What one question would you like to ask me?
I would say, I have a comment and a question. Okay. I know just from the little I do know about your past, you are an amazing doctor. What is the one thing that made you turn away from that long-standing career and a lot of education that you had to take in to be able to achieve that? So what was it one thing?
The repetitive mundane of what was in front of me every day would be the one thing, and tied closely to that one thing is the lack of time that I had to pursue other interests because I was focused exclusively on the patient in front of me. So in the case of this podcast, I can't do anything else. I'm not creating any other projects. I'm not working on anything else. I'm here and I'm present with you. And as much as I enjoy this time, to do this from 9 to 5 days a week for 25 years and not pursue anything outside of it because my mind was completely engaged with the patient in front of me was getting to the point where I was going to shoot myself. I needed some creative outlets. So I've learned about myself, I could do 2-3 podcasts a week and feel, excited because I have, 95% of the week to do whatever the hell I want to do. And so it was just the mundaneness of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does. Good answer.
Well, dude, I really enjoyed this. This time went really quickly. I knew that this was going to be great. Do you have any final words, suggestions, or an ask for the people that are listening?
I would say not right now, but Brooke's going to be launching her podcast soon. So I would say BrookeThomas.com is a great place. You can go to learn about that and learn about our business. And I just want to say thank you, Rob, and props to your amazing wife, Kim, for doing all that she does. And it's been an enjoyable experience. It's been awesome.
Dude, I can't wait. We're going to get something on the calendar soon, and we are going to bicycle somewhere for lunch together. That's going to be our goal.
I'm ready.
Okay, buddy. Thanks again.
All right, man. Take care.
All right. Thanks for listening. If you love this episode and you know someone that needs some help in either stepping up their work hard game or their play hard game, it would mean the world to me if you shared this podcast with them to help me get this movement out there. So if you like what you heard, head on over to iTunes, take 30 seconds and leave me a 5-star review, and I will be forever grateful. So until the next episode, excuses are over. It's time to live.